professional. They'd wonder what's going on.
Hey guys, welcome to another Coach's Q&A. I am Steve Gordon and I'm joined by Charlotte Wilton. How are we doing?
I am good, thank you. You?
Yeah, very good, thank you. And I'm also joined by the Mr. Simon Trenholm. How are we doing, pal?
Really good this week, mate. Really good.
Good stuff. So this one, guys, is just us chatting absolute garbage. Just chatting. So what I recommend, press pause, get yourself a really strong drink, and some of it might make sense because the way it's going, you'd think this bottle was full of whiskey. The way we're been chatting, do you know what I mean? But
we haven't been drinking. I promise, we've not been having a socially distanced drink.
Yeah.
Very distant.
What you're seeing is you're seeing three coaches who have just finally broken. We've just broken down. We've realised we cannot survive without face-to-face interaction, and it's just caught up with us.
It's all got a bit too much.
I'm completely Pete Tong.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly. So no, guys, what we're going to do is we're just going to reflect on the past few weeks and what's been big learnings, what we didn't expect for us to learn, what's been the pros, the cons to come out of it. And yeah, we were just having some good chats off air there, weren't we, guys? And just general chit chat really about what's happening in the world and everything else as well. And yeah, it was starting to get interesting.
hence pressing record.
Yeah,
that's it. I had to shut these two up.
Yeah, the cheek.
Yeah. So Charlotte, how's your week been anyway? How's your week been?
Yeah, it's been all right. It's been an interesting week. As I just mentioned, obviously we've had a lot. It's been a worldwide events have been really, unraveling at a huge pace, which started out clearly with the horrendous killing of George Flloyd, and it's been quite emotional. I found it quite an emotional week, really, on that side of things. It's a subject that's quite close to my heart. My family came over to England in 1954, so it's from India, should I say. So I'm always very in touch with that side of life, I suppose. So I found it quite an emotional week. We had Blackout Tuesday, which I took part in, and I've been doing a lot of sort of self-education and things. So that's been interesting. And also training-wise, I've actually taken a little bit of a back seat this week with my trainer. I've done a lot of mobility work. I've done some bell sessions. Went out for a run tomorrow. Did the Zoom today. So training's been a little bit quieter, but I needed it. Bit of a deload week this week, so that's been good. Challenging as well. Kids are challenging me because we're coming out of lockdown and they're really pushing the boundaries now in terms of what they can do. They're really confused. It has been a good week, I promise. But yeah, interesting. Very interesting on lots of levels.
Cool. I'm gonna fire a couple of questions at you after with so I'll come back to them and I'll just ask Trenholm how he's doing.
Okay.
Just writing them down.
Okay. I'm intrigued.
The pressure.
I know, yeah.
Suspense.
Go on,
how have you been getting on, mate?
Yeah, I mean this week. I mean last weekend we did the IUKL comp. It wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so did me two 10-minute sets last weekend. Came off those on a real high. Trained bells Monday night. Recovery went down to like 40%. So maybe long sets 2 in a row did have an effect. So yeah, my training kind of midweek. Just a load of mobility stuff. Woke up yesterday morning, it was like 80-odd%, so jumped on the bike, and then this morning kind of 95%, so it's gone back up to kind of where it should be. But kind of had a weird, difficult to motivate myself, but guilt that I wasn't training. But today, you know, as I said, just trained this afternoon, which it all went pretty well. So feel like I'm kind of back on the training wagon again. Been doing a lot of experimenting with the food stuff, so some different recipes coming out, which is pretty good. And finally sorted out a reasonable internet connection, so it now doesn't take an hour and a half to upload a video.
It takes an hour and 15 minutes. Guys, so, I must say, trying to see Simon log on to this Zoom conversation was probably one of the most painful things I have ever watched in my life. At one point, there was about 20 of him on the screen. You know, I thought I was hallucinating it. I thought, what kind of mushroom has Sarah put with my gnocchi? You know, I thought it was, you know, one of those kaleidoscopes. When you look into it, it's little different shapes. That's what was happening, guys. There was just floating Simon's heads all over. And then he started talking like C-3PO and he'd drop in and drop out. Oh, it's awful. I'm not going to sleep tonight.
What has be seen can never be unseen.
Oh no, let's not go there.
Yeah. Hey, remember that time in South Korea, Sam?
Yeah.
I wasn't even there.
No, I know.
I don't want to hear that story again.
Oh, when I'm having a sad day, when I'm having a low day, it's always there to cheer me up. Just.
Why do you think my sleep is so bad?
It's always just there to pick me up and just chuckle to myself, sat in the corner. It still gets me.
How about your week, Dee?
Yeah. This week's been good. Just got another mark back from uni on my sports research. So for anybody who's interested, I looked at the kinematics of a cattle movement jump and comparing that to kettlebell jerk, and is it a predictor of jerk performance? The answer is no, because there's too many other variables.
And you said that in how many words?
3,000. I strung that bad boy out.
No.
What were we just saying about him going on and on and on and on?
Exactly. Mate, this is what uni does to you, mate. Just teaches you how to chat crap for God knows how long. But so got that mark back, which was a good one. So
good.
But yes, this week been really strong in terms of planning and diarising things. So pretty much my routine on a morning, I feel really good about that, because it feels like it's solidified into a solid routine. So kind of give like the cheesy power hour type thing into it, and it's just kind of like, right, when I wake up naturally, jump on the laptop, strong coffee, mobility, and getting loads done, and then I'm sort of finishing at 9 o'clock doing Neve's PE lesson, and then going, all right, I've got to do no, I've already done that. No, I've already done that. And I finally like, oh wow, you can get a lot done if you just concentrate. Who knew?
Yeah.
You know,
when you're not watching cats on skateboards on
oh yeah, exactly. Dogs. But
sorry.
but yeah, it's been a good week. Still got some training in. Been training with the kettlebell team a lot this week and stuff, and doing them sessions and stuff for those guys, which has been good. So yeah, overall it's been a really good week, actually. You know.
Good.
So.
What are those questions you wanted to ask me? I'm intrigued. Just get them on the way.
String them out. No. So I think I just want to touch the pace on like a few of the challenges that you've had, because I think it's challenges that we kind of all have, or we kind of just we kind of brush them aside because they come up frequently enough. It's just you just end up saying, oh, it's just something I do. You know, you don't actually analyze how you deal with something. So it's just kind of like, so those challenges you had, and obviously the current political situation and the full picture on pretty much just questioning humanity as people seem to be coming out of the woodwork, and some people seem to be coming out from darkened rocks and setting up a Facebook profile. It was just kind of like, how did you find yourself breaking that down and sort of challenging it, and just because what I find interesting is again just trying to, you see a bit of information and it's catching yourself not by it being triggered by it. Do you know? So, but you've got a lot more emotional connection to that. So how did you find yourself managing it? Because I know you've been educating yourself a lot on that full topic and stuff, which is great to see, by the way.
Yeah, so I suppose because I get triggered by that quite a lot. I have done all my life, I suppose. And it's, for me, I do a lot. I know it's about that sort of critical thinking and research we've spoken about before. I always read into things and look into things first, because there's so much on there at the moment, isn't there, in terms of opinions and social media and not always the right way. And so I always tend to kind of take a step back. And this week, rather than trying to think how I kind of managed it, but I suppose rather than just diving in nose first, I kind of just looked at different people's backgrounds that I was reading about. So it's like when you buy a book, you look at the author, don't you, and say, right, okay, are they credible? What's been going on there? And I think because people have been so emotional about what they've been seeing and a lot of knee-jerk reactions, I've been trying not to get dragged into it too much, and I've been looking at papers, and I've been listening to podcasts that are from both people, well, from historians. I've been looking at a lot of women as well, Black women, and then I've been actually stepping away from the US and looking more into the UK as well. But I suppose it's hard for me to kind of to not be emotional about it as well. I am very attached to that subject. I actually posted some stuff on my page because I didn't know whether to do this or not, but then I was looking at a lot of people in our industry who were posting things as well, and they were getting a lot of backlash, and people were saying you shouldn't be using this as your platform. But then on the other side of it, people were saying, well, actually no, you should, because you're just trying to educate people. And so yeah, it's a difficult one, because I am, like I say, I'm emotionally attached, but I just do my research. I always do. And I look and see, one guy's name came up, and when I looked into his background, I was like, whoa, well, I wouldn't have seen that if I'd just listened to what he was saying. And turns out he was like a right-wing activist. But I still listened to what he was saying, because I wanted to get that viewpoint so that I'm more informed if I'm actually speaking to somebody about that. So yeah, I don't know, that's a complete waffly answer, but I do my research all the time. I try and listen to all points of view. But for me now, in this situation, I've always been quite scared to speak out. I've always, because of the repercussions, I don't like confrontation. So I've never really stood up, and now I thought, you know what, no, I'm going to now. I believe it's the right thing for me to do, so I'm going to start taking a bit more action. And I've had a little bit of backlash, actually, just a couple, but nothing major. I've just ignored it. But yeah, it's interesting. There's some interesting debates going on, and I'm trying to educate my children as well, which is really important. So yeah, but it's just breaking it down. It's just being realistic, being realistic about things, and yeah, not getting drawn into the chip, because you see a lot of people trolling and getting drawn into arguments that don't need to be had as well.
It's interesting. It's something that I've seen a lot, and I've had this thing going back and forth all the time of going back to posting, not posting, and stuff like that. And for the simple fact is, at the moment, I'm ignorant. Purely, I have not come to, and this isn't me saying, oh, I don't know if killing someone is bad because of the colour of their skin. That I'm not that ignorant. I'm not that that far. It's more about the full situation. It'd be foolish for me to comment on something that happened centuries ago when I'm not fully informed. You know, I can only comment on what what I know about,
Yeah.
and I don't feel comfortable talking about a subject which I don't really know anything about, you know. And that's
Yeah, that's it.
I shouldn't go out there and say it's wrong, because ultimately it is. But it's kind of like, if somebody asks me a question, I want to make sure I've got some sort of relevant answer there to answer it for, because I've seen
There's
a lot.
some, and there's some really, really good information out there. And I took part in an online, it was a protest this afternoon actually, and it was supposed to be outside, and they called it was a stand up to racism, and there was some really interesting speakers on there. There was a couple of MPs, there was a couple of people who've been victims of hate crime as well, and also been unfortunately the victims of police brutality in this country. So it really opened my eyes as well, for hearing it firsthand, because I think that the problem is that people are still surprised that it happens and that it goes on. I'm not surprised that it still goes on, because I do hear things, you know. So it's kind of, I think everybody needs to educate themselves. That's the thing. And one thing that I hadn't thought about, which really I've been listening to a lot of Black speakers recently, is that it really isn't even mine, even though I do have Indian heritage. It's not our job to actually ask them to educate us. It's up to ourselves to educate ourselves, you know, and that I do feel strongly about that, because a lot of people have been through a lot of trauma. So why would we then say, oh, so what
just
was I like?
Dig on that back.
Exactly.
Up again, would you please, and go through it all again.
But you've got to be really careful. You can get really drawn in and really emotional, and really, and I've just been trying to read and listen from people who have those experiences, that want to share them, and listening to historians and that's been really interesting. I didn't realize how steeped America's history was in dividing and racism. I didn't really realize that until now. I was ignorant. But I watched a really interesting documentary last week about obviously colonialism in Britain. And my grandparents, like I say, came over in 1954, and at the time people were encouraged to come to Britain. But when they got here, they didn't really get what they were promised, you know. And it's you know, but we don't learn about that in school, and so, you know, there's quite a warped view of what goes on when you have your history lessons. As my sister reminded me, we learnt about crop rotation and dinosaurs, World War I and World War II.
There's I think there's a dispatches program on, I think, Monday, and that's investigating the Windrush. Because that again is just a whole other part, and that's recent history. You think these things are going on in the sort of 1800s, and it's not. I mean, you know, apartheid in South Africa, but you know, and that's the big old famous one, isn't it? That's the one everybody talks about, everybody knows about. But recent history in the US, and as I said, the Windrush scandals in the UK. And Cyrus' dad came over in, I think Cyrus' dad came over in 57. From Pakistan. And, you know, made his way in the UK, but as your parents have, it certainly wasn't easy for them.
No, and still listen, you know, my mum's got darker skin than me. Obviously, I'm light skinned. To be fair, most people think I'm white. But my mum's she's quite a lot darker than me, and she's been shouted at, within the last few years, and told to go home. She's like, I am home. I was Bonnie, where do you want me to go? Crazy. It's crazy. Most people don't realise, and they don't think that it goes on, and that's why it's a problem, because, you know, we need to tell people that it does. You know, so it's interesting. It is interesting. I do think I do encourage and implore people to go out and just, you know, and just to educate themselves, because there's a lot of stuff out there, a lot of really stuff, podcasts, there's a lot of stuff on all over the internet, you know.
Yeah, I think because of the studying I've done in terms of different philosophy and stuff, where I struggle is the labeling of things. I don't
Yes.
see it as a black versus white problem, or a police state, or a this problem or this problem. I kind of see it as from a philosophical point of view, and because I read a lot of Stoicism and I study philosophy, and it's kind of like, and this is where I really struggle in terms of it's just a human problem. It's a human instinct problem. And then when you look at the psychology, what makes up human beings, and how we are just conditioned of what we've been taught as growing up and everything else like that, it's it's that's where I struggle, because I really don't put a lot of labels on it. I just see it as a problem.
Yeah.
It's not specific problem. It's just it's a humankind problem. Do you know what I mean? And that's where I struggle personally, because like I say, and that's the way I approach it. But again, I know that I need to do a lot more research into it, because obviously I know it is do unto others that you would want them to do unto you, kind of things, and then you look at, why do people act in the way they act? It's generally speaking, it's a way that they've been conditioned over time. As the old saying goes, racism, you're not born a racist, you're raised a racist. And that's the thing. So it's kind of looking at the shift needs to be more of a humanistic thing, because when you focus on one side of things, it just ends up isolating one problem. But if you just try and go a little bit, few more levels deeper, then it generally has that knock-on effect as well. And I know that's it's really complex and so difficult to do. But for me, it's kind of looking at the Stoic philosophies and the teachings of the Bible and other and obviously other religions and stuff like that, because they're all very much trying to say the same thing. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think, because the more you look into it, it can become uncomfortable? And do you think that stops people looking into it as much? It's just dawned on me that, I mean, you look from a white guy from Stockton. When you look into it, you actually find the English, UK in general, we've done some pretty unpleasant things to most people in the world. And I think some people may find that uncomfortable as well, and then stop researching. And I wonder if that's one of the things that we have to overcome as a populace. And it's not just white guys in the UK, is it? It's the conquistadors from Spain, with the Crusades and like they went into South America, etc., etc. But it's one of those things that when you look at history, you can either just dismiss it as, oh, that's ancient history, we know it's not, but that's ancient history, or actually I feel pretty bad about the fact that my ancestors did that to somebody else, and it then becomes quite uncomfortable.
I think one thing that I've noticed a lot lately is that self-reflection. It all starts with you. It all starts with oneself. To try and fix anything else, you need to understand where you currently are as a person. That's what I believe. You can't fill someone else's cup if yours is empty. So I think where it becomes difficult is pointing out your own failings and then challenging them and challenging your thought process. Like we chat about critical thinking, and you might go, actually, I was wrong. And there's loads of times I look back and go, oh my God, what an absolute idiot you were. sort of the way you used to think about certain things and stuff like that. But it's very difficult for that. And there's a lot of people who, you've seen it many a time, haven't you, when you chuck a fact in their face and they get stumped and go, well, I know you are. You said you are, but what am I, kind of thing? And you're like,
yeah,
it doesn't even make sense.
yeah,
You know, but it's very difficult, and this is what I find about when you study Stoicism. And again, I can only speak for myself, but when I speak to Stoicism and you try and process things in a rational thought and see about everything you're trying to do is for humankind and in accordance with nature, you know, and nature isn't just the trees and the wind and all of that. Nature is everything around you. That's what the Stoic philosophers are talking about, and everything should be in accordance with nature. If you do a good thing for something, then something else will continuation of that good. Likewise, bad will be. But understand that every day you will come across ignorance, you will come across the foul, stinking man who hasn't bathed, you will come across the thief, the scoundrel, you will come across them. So, but you know that's going to happen, so why be perturbed by them? Do you know? And I think that ends up coming across as lackadaisical or indifferent to anything. Do you know? But that's just at the level of Stoicism and Stoic thinking that I'm at. do you know what I mean? Yeah, I listen to Donald Robertson and stuff, and these guys, and I'm just like, wow, you know, the way they can process information. And I've done a lot of reading. You know me, I'm the biggest nerd going. You know?
Yeah.
And what is it? The average person in the UK reads one non-fiction book a year.
Is that what it is?
Do you know what I mean? It wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, I'll dig out that fact. But
it's not.
People don't self-educate. It's not a big thing because people are now in an information overload world where they're just used to being talked at. So they're actually being told their opinion before they've even formed an opinion. Do you know? So then you've got a lot of people, probably like myself, who just go, I feel like I should say something, but I don't know if I should, and I'm just going to sit on this fence with a spike up my ass, do you know? No matter how uncomfortable it gets, because for every time you go to point the finger, what is it? Every time you point your finger, there's three pointing back at you. Do you know what I mean? And that's very difficult, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think as well, maybe, I don't know if it's about pointing fingers either anymore, is it? In this whole sort of situation, it's more about just gaining an understanding as well of the situations that people are in as well, isn't it? You know, and actually knocking down those kind of walls of ignorance and actually being open to listening and understanding and learning. And I think a lot of people, like you say, that used to being told what they should be doing and talked to through whatever channels it is. And that's the thing, isn't it? It depends on what channels you're being talked at through and who's behind them, especially on the internet now, because you know, you could be being influenced by, well, you don't know who you've been influenced by unless you start researching, which is why I always look into who it is that's speaking and what they're telling me and where they're from. But I think, you know, it's about kind of people being more open-minded and having that understanding, because if people are just going to shut off to it and think that they have no part to play in making change and doing things, then nothing will happen. And I think a lot of people have done nothing for a long time, and so a lot of things haven't changed. And I think that recently, and I'm hopeful that actually the recent turn of events means that people have woken up a little bit. And I know not everyone will, and we'll never change everyone's minds. Yeah, because there's always going to be the Tommy Robinson, whatever you call him, Tommy Robbins. You know the guy I mean. There's always going to be the followers that just, you know, the Holocaust deniers. There's always, unfortunately, we're always going to have that fraction of society. But we've always had that, and race and things like that. It's a social construct, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Race is a social construct. And so, you know, and it goes back years and years. There was slavery was in amongst Eastern Europeans, you know, and that was nothing to do with the colour of the skin. That was to do with one group thinking they were superior to another, you know, and so that goes back. Like you say, it's human nature, isn't it, and how humans are with each other. So there's a massive job of work to be done, because at the end of the day, it's like it's in our makeup, isn't it? How we're being, you know, how we're being today. So yeah, it's interesting times ahead.
Oh, absolutely. And it'd be great to see movements changing things and things changing for the better and stuff. And hopefully it does. And I really do hope it does. It's always very difficult to sort of look at biology and this genetic makeup that we seem to have predisposed into us, in terms of there's always going to be people out there who feel they're going to be able to dominate and domineer and control things in a certain way. And there's the chances are, as a population grows, that typical personality and that genetic makeup is always going to come to a fore. And likewise, the care and genetic makeup that's going to come, and the chemical dispositions that are inside people's brains are always going to be, you know, if somebody's more domineering and a dominant force and stuff, then it truly is going to come down to education. But at the end of the day, if they're raised in a household that is uneducated or doesn't want to look at it, then it's all well, that's it, isn't it? You know, and it comes back to the social classes, doesn't it? As well, you know, the things that we've constructed within the social class system and stuff as well. And generally speaking, we look at the lower classes and stuff and how they're perceived, and you can see why they turn to anger and hatred, because of the way they're treated by the upper classes, or the perceived of, well, they're all right, what about me, kind of things, you know. So it's such a complex subject, isn't it?
Is
so complex.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, absolutely. Was that the only question you had?
Yeah, well, that's all we've got time for.
I know. Yeah, right. See you then.
You know? No, I think it's interesting. You just take a lot from that, and I think it's looking at how you challenge that and how you break that down, the challenges that you have each week. I think it's interesting just to see how other people deal with it, because I think it's something that we don't really chat too much about, regardless of this current situation that we're in at the moment. But nobody really ever, I can't remember the last time anybody came up to me and went, how do you tackle when you have a really difficult day? How do you manage and tackle a hard situation in your life and stuff like that, you know? It's a question that doesn't really come up very often, you know? So it's like, right, okay. So then sometimes I think it forces you to go, it's just something I do, but you don't actually question yourself and analyze yourself and go, actually, I'm doing it this way, but is that the best way to do it?
Yeah. Interesting. But it's been a fun. I mean, I don't know about you, but this coming out of lockdown and talking about the last few weeks in lockdown as well. Do you know, this week has been particularly, I found it really difficult coming out of lockdown, more so than going in was so much easier. It was like, right, we're not going out. That was it. Done.
Do you know what? That's very black and white, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not going out now. I think
it's
the problem
murky.
it's because it's that little bit murky, and you obviously want to act in a certain way. So when you are out, you know, and I find it when Sarah and I are going out walking, you know, we'll either walk over to the fields, the back of the Harburn village, and there's a bike path maybe, I don't know, 2.5 meters, 3 meters wide. I find myself getting really, really aggravated when people are just walking two abreast down the middle of the path and not moving off to the side. But they're obviously thinking, we're out of lockdown, everything's hunky-dory, and I'm still going, no, you might carry the lurgy. And it's just that, again, I think it's different people are coming out of lockdown in different ways and at different levels and a different level of comfort. and it's one of those things that, you know, without you catching yourself, and again having that little bit of that self-awareness and that thinking about how other people are viewing the situation, you know, you can find yourself getting quite aggravated by it.
I'm to be honest, I'm because we're coming out of it, I'm almost forgetting. So we walked to the butcher's, because obviously we live in town, so we'll walk to the butcher's, walked down, and I walked with Mike, and he went off one way, and this lady crossed the road to get out of my way. I didn't realise she'd done it, and I literally walked in front of her. And I went, oh, and I'd realised what I've done, and I was like, oh my God. And Mike, when she crossed the road to get out of your way, and then you walked in front of her, I was like, and it's just like, oh, just get me back home.
I'm not staying to be out in public.
Give me sausages and let me go. Yeah, and it's really hard, and the girls are really frustrated, and, you know, it's kind of, yeah, it's hard because, and now obviously we've got the training, and we're trying to get people training outdoors again, so I've found it really challenging this week to just, I just think, oh, just put me back in lockdown.
Yeah.
Put me back in. I just had enough.
It's adapting to that uncertainty, isn't it? You know.
Yeah.
And it's remembering the new rules, and it's like training. This is just the difficult overreaching stage where it's going to take time for your body to adapt and stuff like that. I met with a new athlete on Monday, and I was like, "You're all right. I'd normally shake your hand right now, but I can't," you know. And it was like, "Yeah, okay." And the first time I've ever took antiviral wipes to a personal training session. You know what I mean? And like every time, I don't know about you, but every time I'm taking a wipe out, I'm just like envisaging me just shouting, "Unclean, unclean, away!" You know, and it's just like, you know, and they're looking at you, and I'm not set. I know it looks like I'm saying you're filthy, you know, and stuff, but like literally, this is just the way we have to do it.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I've used half a tub of viral spray and half a tub of antiviral wipes, or antibacterial wipes, and I've only trained 2 people.
It's just, yeah. But this is the phrase that people don't like to know, but it's that new normal, isn't it? You know. But I think you look at the impact of it and stuff like that. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really interesting how people handle it. I think there's going to be a lot of people that really won't handle it very well. That is for sure. Like, absolutely will not handle it. I was in the supermarket on Tuesday, and how I didn't get locked up, I do not know, because I just wanted to just spinning back fist people all right the centre. You know, have you seen the film Mean Machine? Right, like, so Mean Machine, there's this guy, Jason Statham plays him. He's called the Monk, right? And basically, he has these flashbacks, and it's like a Marilyn Manson song comes in, and he just starts beating people up, and it comes back to his present. Do you know what I mean? He just himself filling it up. And that's all I had was just like angry music coming on, and then me just getting some old woman in a headlock and beating her up and drop kicking somebody and stuff like that, you know. All because somebody brushed past me trying to get a pint of milk and stuff. You know? It's just like, man. But it's kind of like that level of awareness. And I think, just going back to what you were saying there, Si, of kind of like when people are just thinking we're out of lockdown, everything's hunky-dory. What I've noticed is obviously people are a lot more insular, or even just like, I'm okay, Jack, away we go. And we had this chat a good few months back now. I don't know whether everybody just seems a little bit more selfish, but it's kind of like their survival mechanisms have just kicked in even more so. They've just gone more animalistic. But I think it's the people who are informed, or the people who've read and learnt about a subject. And I think once you understand the subject a little bit more, that saying of ignorance is bliss is is sometimes a blessing in disguise, because we've had to understand the subject and understand the seriousness of it and everything else like that, because we know it, we know the impact of it. Do you know? Like, if I said to Simon, right, okay, you got to stay at my house, mate, and right, we're going to have McDonald's for breakfast, Burger King for dinner, and so if you're like, Steve, do you want to give me a heart attack? But if I didn't know about that, the health benefit, the detriments of fast food, then I just think that's normal, isn't it? Do you know? So it's adapting that without punching all women in the throat. You know?
Yeah, I mean, you can become almost too far the other way, can't you?
Yeah.
And you've got that little bit of knowledge is dangerous. You know, I mean, I started out thinking, right, okay, I've got just over 350 kilos of weight plates. I'm going to have 200 kilos of weight plates for outside garden training, and I'm going to keep my rubber plates inside. And I've got those bumper plates from Wolverson that are made up of the compressed. And I'm looking at those and I'm thinking, well, they're going to be really, really difficult to clean. So I'll just get the old stale stuff outside. And, you know, anybody that wants to come to the garden and pick up some heavy stuff is going to get, you know, it's all going to be antiviral, but woe betide that's staying in the shed. And all of my bumper plates, you know, the rubberized stuff that I can't clean as well, I know I'm going to be symptom free, or otherwise I'm not going to be training. You know, and you start looking far more into it, and just taking far fewer risks, don't you? And then you've got people, as I said, walking along hand in hand, like there's nothing going on in the world.
No, that's it. It's getting that fine balance, isn't it? You know, really is getting that fine balance, you know. And I think it's interesting because you've got some people out there who it looks like Rio Carnival. I'm like, how do you live in one house? You do not live in one house. There's more than 5 households here, you know.
Well, look at Richmond Falls last week.
Yeah, It's I mean, it happened beaches all over, and I was out running the other day, and there was just like, it must have been about 15 teenagers all together and stuff like that. You know what I mean? And it's just like, yeah, is this a bad thing? Is it a good thing? What is it? You know, it's that uncertainty of like, I don't know if I'm doing right for doing wrong here. Do you know?
I think you just got to come to the conclusion that it's a thing until something goes wrong. And if nothing goes wrong, then it just stays as a thing. If something does go wrong and their grandparents get it, and, well, you know, heaven forbid something happens to them, then it becomes a bad thing, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. It is. It's certainly interesting, but I think it's I'd be really interested to look at is the impact it has in a good few months' time, when it's kind of deemed as it's gone, not like it's just, we treat it the same as the common cold or the flu. Do you know? It'd be interesting to see how people react and stuff, because I think the impact on people's psychology and the conditioning to the way they interact with people has changed massively, you know. And it's just kind of like, right, okay, how are people going to react here? You know, really, how are people going to react here? And that's going to be really, really interesting to see what new habits people have brought up and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, and we've never had anything like this. I mean, yes, we've had other coronaviruses that will kill you, SARS, for example, but they haven't had, I mean, SARS has a natural R value of less than 1. This has got a natural R value of somewhere around 3.5. So it's it's much easier to catch than SARS did, and I think that's why we've never seen the likes of this before. And I think you're right, it is going to be interesting to see how people react, you know, when there's very, very few new cases. You know, if we get to the stage of New Zealand where, you know, they've eradicated it, then what happens to people, and will there always be that kind of, well, what happens if you've just come back from holiday in Spain and Spain has still got cases, you know, We shall see.
Mm.
New Zealand locked down straight away, though, didn't they?
Well, yeah.
That's the thing, and I think that's what really frustrates me a little bit now is, oh, okay, New Zealand did it this way, they did it the right way, and stuff like that, and it's like, you know, who was right and who was wrong, you
different
know.
demographic, different population, different population densities.
That's it. It's so difficult, and
I'm not saying that the government hasn't done anything wrong. I'm not saying that, you know, we won't have a public inquiry and it'll all come out that, you know, we didn't do it very well. But yeah, you've got a lot of people, and again, it's that people commenting without the education, without the knowledge, without the understanding of what's happened. And it's not going to be until we get a public inquiry with freedom of information that actually the whole story does come out.
Mm. It's going to make one exciting Channel 4 documentary, isn't it?
I know.
Because those things are never biased, though. They're never biased.
Watch Dispatches. I watched Dispatches on, was it last night or Thursday night? Dispatches did a whole thing about it.
I saw that and I thought,
completely unbiased.
Yeah, I saw that and I just thought, I'm just not even going to watch it.
Yeah, well, Sarah just went, I'm not watching this, I'm going to bed.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as I say, you're not going to find out what really happened until after the event. Yeah, it's going to be a few years yet.
If ever.
Well, yeah.
if ever. Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Cool.
An interesting few weeks, hasn't it?
Yeah, right, guys. Well, before we start going on another tangent and talk for another hour and stuff, probably wake up people who've fallen asleep while watching.
Yeah. We're done.
Yeah, but hopefully, guys, you actually found that interesting. It wasn't just all about training, sets, reps, and all that kind of stuff. You actually got some use out of that and just seeing our points of views on things and how we all process information a little bit different as well. You know, the main thing is starting a conversation and actually not jumping down each other's throats and saying you're wrong because of this, and this. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool, interesting. Yeah. Learn to educate other people.
The sign behind you, though, Steve, is pretty good as a quote, isn't it? Just
it is indeed.
Talk, Steve.
It is indeed. So, it is indeed.
It's great about what you do today.
Not tomorrow.
So don't put it off.
That's it. Just read a book. Read a book. And by the way, guys, average people in the UK read around about 10 books per year. The median is 4. Okay, but the genre is more lean to fiction rather than non-fiction. So people are learning about 50 Shades of Grey and Bird Box more than they are learning about philosophy, self-improvement, and actually reading about meaningful subjects. So I take from that what you will. Okay, maybe we've got a lot of sex-deprived people out there who are reading about 50 Shades of Grey.
Your multitasking's getting better, mate.
I know,
we hardly noticed.
Didn't even notice.
I've actually been doing finger exercises as well while I've been on this call.
I thought you were going to say something else there.
That is a finger exercise, by the way. This isn't some weird contraction that you would find at a local club
that
of
was
a
a
sort
free gift when you ordered 50 Shades of Grey, wasn't it? That's what that was.
Well, I can get one hold, but what's the other for Charlotte?
Yeah, all those holes are different sizes, mate.
All right, fair enough. Right, guys, on that note, enjoy. I don't think this will get past YouTube. They won't clear it. But right, guys, have a good one.